Happy Sunday. We're back with Misericorde Volume 1. We're back at it. And last week on Misericorde, kind of went off the rails a little bit. We went into town, and in town we were tasked to give out the fritters to the townsfolk. And everybody was warning Hedwig ahead of time, like, the town kind of sucks, whatever. The people are mean, etc., etc. Eustace and Hedwig in the back of the trolley, or whatever you want to call it, the carriage, on the way there, had like a heart-to-heart moment of apology and understanding, but still not cleared up. Things are not happy between the two of them, and it all kind of came to a head in town after everybody in town was being so dismissive. Hedwig got a big bucket of laundry water dumped on her head and ruined her habit, and had like a fight in the town square. And Eustace and Moira wound up leaving her, and she was alone. And then she started to dissociate. There was a dog that was eating these wet, gnarly fritters, and then he would get sick, and then he would look at what he just got sick from, and then eat it again, and then get sick, and then eat it again, and then get sick. And she's watching this, and she's watching this carnival come through, and this giant face on part of the group compelled her to follow it. And one thing led to another, and we had this very surreal moment of wandering through this town and trying to kind of make heads or tails of the world around us. We had a really, really cool video OBS glitch. I guess not glitch, it's just how it processes, that wound up even adding to the narrative texture of the world around us, because the dithering on display on the screen kind of fused together in OBS to give the first color image of the game so far. And there were a couple of these, and it was really fascinating because I did not see the colors because I'm viewing this on my monitor, full 1080p. But when you squash it down a little bit to fit into the bounding box of OBS, the way that the colors and the dithering interpret all of the lines together made this show up red and made this show up almost like a red and blue, like throw your 3D glasses on type thing. Really, really just incredibly cool. And then we saw God. Really serendipitous. Yeah, really, really, really cool. And then we saw God. And so the title of this stream is The Hangover, because that's really all I can make sense of what's going on. We're assuming she's going to come to. We don't know what's going to happen after that, but that's where we're at. March 30th, 2025. We're picking up from the March 23rd, 2025 save file here. This will be, I believe, episodes 13 and 14?
Are you out of your mind?
Anybody want to fact check that? I think it's 13 and 14 of Misericorde. I think it is 13 and 14. Here we go, everybody. Misericorde continues. Now.
Sister? I thought I saw you wandering up the hill. Are you all right? You'll catch cold if you stay out there too long. Come on, up you get.
No.
What's gotten into you? It's a good thing I stepped outside when I did. I'd hate to think what would have happened to you if you'd got stuck up there all by your lonesome. Oh, you feel quite clammy. Where'd your friends get to? Did you get lost? You were the new one, eh? Easy to do around here. I still have to second guess myself sometimes if I wander further than the inn. We can send you up to the Abbey once you're warmed up. You hungry? I'll tell the wife we have a guest. Lucky enough, we've always kept enough around for 3. Here you are. Well, eat at your own pace. You should eat, though. Climbing that hill all by yourself. That's hard work.
In those shoes, no less.
Something happened?
She looks quite dazed.
Miss? Sister? Did someone get rough with you?
Or did you have a fall, perhaps? I imagine it'd be easy. That path hasn't been taken care of in donkey's years.
Is there anything we should tell your abbess?
Eat up, dear.
This is not on. If one of those towny bastards mistreated her, oh, they won't hear the end of it.
She's shaking her head.
Thank God for that. Do try to eat something, though. Whatever happened has clearly rattled you.
Catherine.
Huh? The dead woman?
No. No. She means our Catherine. Birthmark on her face.
If you say so. I'm rubbish at remembering that sort of thing.
The tall woman from the estate. You remember?
Oh, so she really did take the vows. Well, I'll be.
Yes. She lives in the Abbey now. I could not bring myself to look at them. And do you think she could kill someone? What sort of question is that?
Well, yes.
Harold!
It's common knowledge. Hey.
Even still, you're upsetting her and she's clearly a little touched. Right now? What is common knowledge?
Well,
Harold, do not upset her any further.
she killed her husband, didn't she?
Now look what you've gone and done. Who was her husband?
Lord of the estate, over by the lake. It was a terrible scandal.
And there was proof?
Well, now that you mention it, not that I know of, but it's proof enough, I suppose, that she opted to take the veil.
We should stop talking about this. It's not proper. Why would she kill him?
It had something to do with infidelity, if I remember right.
It's not spoken of anymore. The whole village put it behind them when she left. And who is the lord of the estate now?
Truth be told, I can't be arsed to keep up with titles and whatnot. New lord only visits occasionally, I think.
A house with a murder like that hanging over it. I can't imagine it's very comfortable to stay there long. How did Catherine's husband die?
She cut his head clean off with his own sword. Or so they said. I wasn't there, so I couldn't tell you for sure, but, one way or another, he ended up without a noggin. Nasty business. Nasty place in general, this hill. Something here must drive folks mad, I reckon. First Catherine, then our James. Rich or poor, something'll grab you. Well, I'd move, but that's a task easier said than done.
They spoke so freely of the horrid crime. It was common knowledge, even. The answer, it seemed, had been available to me all this time. Several simple questions were all I needed to ask. At the wife's urging, I tried to eat a little more of the pottage they had so kindly provided. It didn't take, however. I was elsewhere still. I felt shame. Shame for how long it had taken me to make any forward momentum on my task for Catherine's sake. Shame for how simple the connections I had needed to make seemed now. I felt shame that it had taken a vision to put me on this path. What I had just experienced was a divine course correction. The kind of thing reserved, I imagined, for good sailors lost at sea or troops wandering in the desert. That I had been deemed worthy of this kind of direct messaging from God spoke very highly of Catherine. Surely, I felt, there were more important people to be helping than I. Perhaps I had been aided in their stead. Perhaps there was a prayer out there left unanswered because I was too foolish to do a very simple job. Perhaps, as impossible as it may seem to suggest, I was stupid enough to put a strain on God's omnipresence. Matthew 6:28, Latin. Perhaps I'm lower than the lily which thrives while wanting for nothing. So dramatic. I know. But am I wrong to think it? God provides for all, and God is not limited to any one action at one given time. Still, I feel sometimes that I could just be that wretched. Of course, as I might remind myself in a better mood, that's conceited talk. Or perhaps I'm allegorizing the flowers and the birds too heavily, as Augustine warns us about. Who am I to complain, after all? I've suffered far less than Job, yet here I am lamenting more than he ever did. Whether I am damned or just conceited, there is no path that leads me away from shame. Was that 628? Yes. And why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Cool, thanks, Evil Oatmeal. I appreciate that.
Ah, that must be your friends.
The man stood up to get the door. I did not turn around. I was deep in thought, staring into that fireplace. The flames were more comforting, more understanding, more understandable than any pair of eyes I had ever looked into. I could hear pleasantries being exchanged, footsteps on the wooden floor. I could feel two wet presences approaching behind me. Soon I would have to leave the comfort of the fireside to join them. Hedwig? Sister Moira? Sister Eustace? Can you forgive me? It was pointless to wait for a break in the rain, or so my companions said. The ride back up the hill to the Abbey was much soggier than the trip down. Some other travelers in carts, flanked by armored horsemen, passed us by. Sorry, there's no comma. Some other travelers in carts flanked by armored horsemen passed us by at the village outskirts. They looked just as miserable as I felt. I could hear raindrops plinking against their helmets as they hurried into town. We sat in silence for the first third or so. I looked out of the back of the cart, towards the farmhouse chimney, yearning for the security of that fireplace until the building was out of sight entirely.
I told the superiors it was a bad idea, you know.
You were wrong.
Oh?
Yes. I learned something very important today.
Really now?
Yes. It would be difficult to explain.
We have time.
Now, Eustace. I've already forgiven the poor woman. There's no need to torment her.
I'm not tormenting her. I'm curious.
Well, after we split up, I watched a parade go by.
There was a parade?
No, there wasn't.
I'd finally given up on trying to stare into the increasingly distant fireplace and turned to face Eustace. She looked tired.
So what do you mean a parade?
I mean exactly that. I'm sure you can understand. I had a vision.
Really now?
Yes, I swear it. I saw a parade. I saw a procession of carts with no riders, all carrying grand kites and banners. And one of them, I thought at first, carried an effigy. But it was... well, it got more mysterious after that, I suppose. Hey, Mama Axel. I'm glad to hear you're well enough to sit up in bed and send a message. I hope everything's going okay. Truly, it's that kind of stuff, you know. I hope that it's something nice and easy and antibiotics take care of it, no problem. But it's very good to see you. It's very good to see you. Sending you my thoughts.
Well, what happened?
Yes, tell us. This is very interesting.
Well, I followed that particular cart for a while. I suppose that was how I ended up wandering away from the town square.
Understandable. I did tell you to stay put, but I might make an exception for a vision.
Eventually, I lost him. But then I was carried through the air. I know, this sounds quite strange. And then... now, I don't know what that is, but sometimes when you don't know what a name of an ailment is, that means it's either okay or I'm wishing you all the luck in the world. 4 antibiotics. Man, oh man. Bad infection. Got it. Damn. Wow, well, I hope everything's alright. Hopefully the antibiotics clear it right up. Truly. Swelling in general is just, on top of being scary, just like so deeply uncomfortable. So I hope for your sake you've had some just respite, if not healing. I hope you're getting something in there that's just taken away how uncomfortable it can be. Whatever courage the fire had given me had finally waned. I could not bring myself to explain the entirety of my experience to Eustace, whose expression remained, dare I say it, inscrutable. And then I came to, I suppose. I'm not quite sure how to describe it.
You flew?
She walked. That farmer saw her climbing the hill.
Do you not believe me?
I believe you felt like you were flying.
I felt it. I saw it. I was in the air, however briefly.
That man said he found you laying down in the grass at the top of the hill, getting soaked by the rain.
I know this sounds hard to believe, but it's what happened. Eustace sighed deeply and pulled her hood tighter over her head.
People don't fly.
Perhaps flying is the wrong word. I was being carried. It's not like I had control of my faculties in the air.
Like you were plucked from the earth by God's own hand.
Well, yes.
Moira, the man saw her climbing the hill.
So he says. Maybe he saw her after she had come back from the ground. Or maybe both things are completely true.
And how would that work?
Well, Hedwig could have been carried, but and then maybe the farmer was shown an image of her climbing. I mean, she would have been far away from the house, just sort of a shape. So he would go up there and find her.
So God carried Hedwig up a hill and then showed an image of her to a man who was already nearby. 2 divine revelations within, 10 or 15 minutes of each other?
Darcy has visions all the time. Why is Hedwig having one so hard to believe?
So now we have 3 people, all in close proximity, all having these grand visions. It does beggar belief, just a tad.
I think it's beautiful. Maybe this mountain is just special.
Eustace let the squelching of the mud beneath the cartwheels answer for her.
I think it's possible. That's all.
At any rate, it's a moot point to argue. I don't think Hedwig is lying. I just don't know if I can accept that it really happened.
What about Darcy's visions? You've got quite an interest in those, haven't you?
Darcy's are different.
In what sense?
Well, she's never been claimed to be flying in any of hers, for starters.
What does happen in hers, typically?
Why don't you ask her and spare me the Inquisition? That was uncalled for. It's just been a long afternoon.
You can say that again. Can we all please make up before we get back to the Abbey?
I'd like that. I'm sorry for being so hysterical.
You're not hysterical.
It was a cruel idea to force you into coming, I think. Take care, Mama Axel. Get some rest. Get some rest. That tea was too hot. That tea was still too hot. This hydro flask does its job. That tea is still too hot.
I'm
sorry for insisting we stay longer.
I wanted to tell Moira she didn't know the half of it. She didn't deserve to worry about having forced me to do anything when the Superior demanded it in the first place. No. My behavior was inexcusable, as it is all too often. I thought I caught a glimpse of Eustace rolling her eyes out of the corner of my eye, but perhaps she was just adjusting her spectacles.
I can appreciate that this trip was an extenuating circumstance.
Yes, I think next time I will stay at the Abbey if it's all the same to you.
We should at least take you to a picnic or some such. Small steps, you know? You can't stay cooped up in the Abbey forever.
I thought that was rather the point.
Oh, you have a dark sense of humor sometimes, Hedwig.
There were no handshakes this time, but I did not feel like I should push things any further. The rest of the ride up to the Abbey was silent, but at the very least, it was a slightly less comfortable silence than the one that preceded this conversation. I didn't like the uncertainty, but it would have to do. The rain was showing no signs of letting up when we finally arrived. I was particularly bedraggled. The indignity of the laundry water incident was something that would stick with me permanently. And as soon as I hopped out of the cart, I made a beeline for the dorms to change.
Oh. Hedwig? Where are you off to now?
The dormitory? I must get out of these wet robes or I'll never be dry again in my life. Why don't I draw a bath? I had to admit, this sounded like a wonderful idea. You know, I think I would like a bath very much.
We all would after an outing like that, I think. What day is it again?
November the 21st, I think.
Perfect.
I froze. I had not realized that Moira had meant that we all should bathe together at once. Oh, and I did not like that idea at all.
Well, perhaps I'll have one tomorrow. Nonsense. You'll catch cold if you don't.
Do we even have time to heat up water for it?
With any luck, someone's already had the bright idea to take a bath today.
I couldn't help myself. I groaned aloud, and I pulled my hood over my eyes.
What's the matter?
I suspect.
Well, you don't have to join us, Hedwig, but I think it'd be a good idea. Well, that decides it.
Curse my wretched body. I would have escaped this humiliation if it weren't for that little sneeze. Oh, I'm sure of it. Oh, go on then.
You two run up and get your change of frocks. Oh, Eustace, would you mind getting mine?
On it.
We made our way upstairs to the dorms quickly, dripping water all along the way. At the top of the stairs, I nearly ran straight into Darcy.
Oh, good. You're back. I was just looking for you, Eustace.
Hello, Darce.
Do you have a minute? I need your help with something.
Of course. Hedwig, would you mind getting Moira's clothes? Hers is the door between Catherine and Darcy's.
Oh, yes, I can do that. Eustace nodded and Darcy hobbled away back down the staircase. Eustace stopped for a moment on the landing, however, and turned to me.
That reminds me. You should talk to Darcy later, you know? About the vision.
Oh, yes, I will try to remember to do so. Eustace nodded, then disappeared down the stairs after Darcy. I quickly scooped up my dry frock from the dormitory. No suspiciously placed books on my dorm bed, I noted. It felt wrong to intrude in Moira's room, but at this point I desired nothing more than to get this whole exercise over with as quickly as possible. I opened her door and slipped inside, on the lookout for her spare clothes immediately. The last thing I wanted to do was gawk at somebody else's room uninvited. I could not help but notice how neat and tidy it was, however. There was a beautifully carved crucifix hanging on the wall above her pillow, and her reading desk was meticulously stocked with papers. A handsome quill sat next to an ink pot as well. To cap it all off, there was a beautiful little box resting on the desk next to the organized papers. The wood was clearly expertly carpentered, and it was gilded in a regal yet understated fashion. The whole room had a sense of carefully considered elegance to it. It was perfectly fitting for Moira. Simple but radiant. Not vain, but reverent. Please do not tell Moira I just described her as simple. I didn't mean it as an insult. Approachable, uncomplicated, steadfast in her positivity. The bath situation is a perfect example of what I meant. Oh, I'd been so cruel to her in the village, and to be perfectly honest, Eustace wasn't exactly kind to her in the cart either. But Moira's instinct was to bring us closer together. There's a simple beauty in that. Well, I think so at least. Anyway, I quickly identified an impeccably folded set of clothes next to her bed, underneath the window. I scooped them up quickly. As I turned around, however, No. The pile of clothes I was carrying, I think, had brushed up against the quill resting atop her desk. I watched it tumble end over end to the floor, carrying the ink pot with it. No! Black liquid oozed out of the pile of broken glass. I scurried away and closed the door behind me in a panic. I checked the bottom of my shoes. Nothing there. Thank God. In reality, it was dead silent, but I promise you I could hear the bubbling, oozing, and dripping of the undoubtedly expensive ink that I had just splashed all over the floor behind the door. If it's not one thing, oh, it's always another with me. Was I being punished for dawdling once again? Should I have emphatically refused the offer of a bath and instead made a beeline to the superior's office? Should I have gone then? At that very moment? Truthfully, I only came to that conclusion a bit later. In the actual moment, all I could think about was what to say to Moira, or if I would say anything to her at all. It's shameful to admit this, but I was frankly terrified of putting any strain on our relationship at all after my embarrassing display in town. Moira was endlessly forgiving, but I worried that even I could find an end to her graciousness if I kept imposing upon her. And so I decided I would leave this. I couldn't leave quickly enough. I practically flew down the stairs. Suddenly, I was very eager to get into a bath. Anything was better than being caught red-handed with a broken bottle of ink, even bearing myself in front of Moira and Eustace. Moira was already in a tub by the time I arrived. She beamed as I entered the room. I kept my eyes low and deposited her change of clothes close to the edge of the wooden tub.
Ah, was Eustace waylaid?
Yes, Darcy needed her for something.
Well, thank you kindly.
I realized there were 2 tubs similar to the one I had used to bathe my first time out of my cell. At the very least, I was relieved I was about to submerge myself in water rather than stand awkwardly in one of the many smaller wash basins stacked against the wall. I'd been using those to wash myself whenever I could squeeze in a trip to the baths alone after I had discovered to some horror that communal bathing was considered the norm here. I thought 2 big tubs would be nice. The water's not hot, but it's pleasant. You filled these up fast.
A miracle of engineering. This abbey is quaint, I will say, but I'm very thankful for the thorough plumbing. The builders didn't skimp on that, at the very least.
She raised an arm to point at the wall behind her, and I instinctively shut my eyes.
Oh, don't be silly. Anyway, the faucets are back there. They're quite quick.
I had my own faucet in my cell, actually, but I didn't know it was connected to anything greater.
Ooh, you should take a walk around the cistern one of these days. It's quite fascinating. It's the oldest building here, if you can believe it. 200 years old at least. And it serves the kitchen, the baths, the lavatorium, and it keeps it all separate.
I'm glad to hear it's all separate. I'd never feel comfortable here otherwise. But it's apparently not far off from the kind of water management you'd find in the richest castles. Truly, we are blessed. It might not always feel that way, but yes, I think we are. How does it work? I must admit, I couldn't tell you. Sister Catherine showed me a diagram she found in the library once, but it was a bit complicated for me. I know much more about how bodies work than buildings, I'm afraid. Speaking of, she leveled a finger at me with a mischievous glint in her eye. Are you going to get in the bath? You're looming a bit. Oh, well, go on. I'll shut my eyes, I promise. She squeezed her eyes shut in a fashion that she might have intended to be jovial, but I couldn't help but feel condescended to. Nevertheless, I sighed and began to gingerly shed my layers. I balled up my damp clothes next to the empty tub and stepped in as quickly as I could. If I could avoid being seen at all, well, that would have been grand. Well, I take it you're in? I am. The water was not as warm as the bath Darcy had drawn for me after I had first left my cell, but, it was still a relief to sink into it. Moira opened her eyes again, blinking comically.
This is nice.
Indeed. I sank as low as I could and pulled my knees up to my chest. With my chin resting in the water, I could still peer at Moira over the lip of the tub. I did not want to be seen, but I also did not want to be rude. So at the very least, I maintained eye contact.
Black and blue.
Excuse me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just thinking about the dress.
Your humors. They're black and blue, aren't they? Forgive me. Well, mostly black. With a little phlegm for color.
Does that sound about right?
No points for guessing that, I reckon.
Eustace had appeared in the doorway. Eustace almost got me. Almost got me. Dress, that took a second. Thank you. I had a feeling it might have been too subtle. It was just what came to mind when every time I hear black and blue, it's like it's not bruises anymore. You're all black and blue, that's the dress for the rest of my life. We're just stuck with it. She was already removing her hood as the door closed. I looked away out of modesty as soon as I saw that she was casually shedding all of her clothes and haphazardly tossing them aside as she walked.
Well, it's my job to take notice these things.
Do me next.
That's easy. You're as phlegmy as they come, with just as much yellow bile sloshing around in there for good measure. You're like a big, clever soup.
Goodness gracious. When are we eloping?
Moira laughed, and I could hear her flick some water in Eustace's direction. Then I realized something that gave me an instant sinking feeling.
Well then, who am I sharing with?
Ooh, good question. I didn't really think about that.
Well, hurry up and decide. It's getting nippy.
Can we not get a third tub?
We only have the two big ones.
We could play a game to decide?
Too late. I've made my mind up.
I braced myself, but the splashing sounds that followed came from the other tub. I opened my eyes to see Eustace, looking as nonplussed as ever, sitting next to Moira, who seemed wholly unperturbed. Thank God, I thought.
I've never seen you without your cap, Hedwig. I guessed you had black hair, but I suppose I'm still surprised to see it.
Really? I feel like I knew the moment I saw her.
Are my humors that pronounced?
Yes, but whose aren't?
You put much more stock into that sort of thing than I do, I suppose.
Well, it is my duty to know.
True enough.
What color do you think my hair is, Hedwig?
You're always wearing that thing in the bath, but I think I know.
I'm asking Hedwig.
Moira was still wearing her cap. She gestured at her head, dripping water onto Eustace's bushy brown hair in the process. I wouldn't really know how to deduce that.
Take a wild guess.
I frowned, squinting at Moira's eyebrows from across the room. Some sort of, I don't know, dark brown? Chestnut brown?
Does the accent not give it away? Ow!
Moira elbowed Eustace, chuckling. No cheating! It feels like there's a clue you want me to recognize that I'm just not seeing.
Hearing.
Top of the morning to ya, Hedwig? I don't get it.
Oh my God.
Don't say that. With an impish grin, Moira tugged her cap up a little. A few locks of jet black hair draped across her face.
Oh. Huh.
Just like you, Hedwig.
How nice.
Well, consider me surprised.
Did you expect a fiery Irish redhead?
You win, you win.
I genuinely had no idea what she was talking about. In fact, I was slightly irritated. I hadn't expected anything. How could I have? Even the considerate and kind Moira couldn't remember that until recently. Couldn't remember that until recently, my entire world had been a few meters across.
Sorry for the misdirect. I couldn't help myself. Red-headed. Like King David?
Hmm?
King David had red hair?
I thought he had brown hair. What does it say in the Bible?
He's described as Rufus, which means red-headed. That's what Rufus means?
Oh, I always took that to mean he was, well, you know, red-faced. As in his whole head is red.
But really? Well, I could see that interpretation, but
Besides, in Song of Solomon, I remember thusly, Latin.
yes, my lover is red-headed, his hair curly and black. I've played FF7? Yeah, bro, but I've also watched Kim Possible. So, where are we going from there, man? That dude had no hair. Literally a naked mole rat. That was its whole thing. No, it was a naked mole rat. It was a creature.
A golden face is used similarly to red-headed here, I should think.
You might be right. That shattered your immersion? What, watching Kim Possible and the naked mole rat's name was Rufus, but it had no hair? Had I known ahead of time, that would have shattered my immersion too, I'm sure.
This is so exciting. I'm caught between two true scholars. It's like I'm at a real council.
It's our job.
That's right. Still, I like Hedwig's interpretation. It's fun to think about David having red hair. It's dramatic.
I didn't care for Moira's use of the word interpretation here. Either Eustace was correct or I was, and I didn't much like the idea of being wrong, but I was grateful for the support. The conversation subsided for a while, and I became all too aware of the fact that this was a peculiar state for three women who had been at each other's throats earlier in the day to find themselves. I worried that Eustace and Moira felt the same way and prodded them with questions. So, you all do this often?
I should hope so. Bathing is very important for your health.
I think she means, you know, together.
Oh, yes. Well, it's a little embarrassing at first, I suppose, but it is efficient, isn't it?
I don't really plan around it, but there's enough of us here that you're gonna run into someone else eventually.
It's how things are done the world over. Well, the Romans had huge communal bathhouses. Monks washed together too. I must admit, though, a private bath every now and then is to die for. I suppose I've been lucky. Whenever I've come to use a wash basin so far, I've been all by myself. Is it difficult? Being around other people, I mean. I really should have made sure this wouldn't be too big of a leap for you, especially after the day that you've just had. Oh, I'm quite all right. But, well, I'd rather no one looked at me. Ever?
That's right. Well, not while I'm in the nude, certainly.
It's nothing.
we haven't seen before. They spoke in unison. Eustace down low, Moira way up high. Still, all the same. But I understand.
If I take my spectacles off, you'll just be a pale smudge. Would that help?
Well, I suppose I'd prefer that over being defined.
Right you are. I'll pop 'em off when it's time to dry off.
By the way, Eustace, are you ever worried you'll drop your eyeglasses in the water? Those are really expensive, surely.
Unbelievably. I'm lucky to have them.
They're huge. I dread to think how much they cost. Is glass expensive?
Very.
Oh, goodness, yes. I'm sure you've noticed that there aren't too many glass windows here. Let me think. There's the superior office window, the chapel.
I've had these for a very long time, and I hope they last. My eyesight's always been dreadful, but it could always get worse.
Goodness, I'll pray for your sake. I wouldn't wish couching on my worst enemy. Couching? You cut the eye open and then... Ooh. I won't go into details. Thank you. So, Eustace, tell us, how did you afford those?
Well, that's a little forward, don't you think?
True, but, well, we're already in the bath, aren't we?
Fair enough. I did some work for a glassmaker a long time ago and took these instead of a monetary payment.
Ooh, what sort of work?
And same as I do here, really. Information organization.
Gonna pour a little more tea. I think this is the last of it. All right, it was her hair, Evil Oatmeal. Come on. It was her. She pulled back her little thing just a little bit.
Maintaining a library. Managing orders, logging events, that sort of thing.
I was about to say, that sounds like a lot of work, even for a pair of glasses, but I suppose none of us are being paid at all here.
I get by fine. I don't miss the old job.
What made you come here?
Well, I had always wanted to retire to the countryside. And once I had my sturdy pair of eyeglasses, well, I reasoned, what else could I possibly want for?
Oh, I don't know. A rich husband? A beautiful home? I never wanted those things.
Nor I.
I did. Once upon a time. Now, though, I agree with you two, I think.
Okay, fair enough.
At the very least, it'd take more than that to get me away from here. You know, over the past few weeks, I've been so overwhelmed by everything new to me here. I'm not sure I'll ever get used to it. This life of asceticism might feel simple to you, but it'll never be simple to me. I was prepared to spend my whole life with much less than all this. That is a very helpful perspective, actually.
Yeah, that's important to keep in mind, I think.
Are you feeling better now, after everything? Everything that happened today, Hedwig? I don't know. Most of all? Well, I just feel embarrassed. As I feel about my behavior in the Misericorde, yet still.
Forget about it.
Yes! There's no need to worry about that, really. I think I would fare worse if I were in your shoes. And we can help you get better. In fact,
I think it's our next responsibility. Perhaps it was because we were all relaxed from our baths. Perhaps there was something to be said for being naked and vulnerable in a room with other people after all. But this second round of apologies for the day felt genuine. I wondered how the ink on Moira's floor was faring. It was hard to relax with that in the back of my mind. The conversation slowed down as we all focused on washing and scrubbing, and I soon realized that the most difficult challenge was yet to come. When we're all done and it's time to, get dressed, could I go first? Of course, but why? Well, it's, just like we've been talking about. I'm not used to all this, and, it's a bit embarrassing. Yeah, that's it, exactly.
Won't it be more embarrassing having us just sitting here watching you?
Don't confuse her now.
I'm trying to help.
No, actually, she's right. I mean, the most embarrassing would be all of us at once.
Why?
Because then you'll both see me and I'll see you and we'll be close to each other. Well, what if Eustace and I both close our eyes? Well, that would work.
Would it?
Oh, or what if you two went first and I closed my eyes? That seems, more efficient?
I wasn't aware that efficiency was a concern here. Honestly, this is the most I've ever had to think about being naked.
Hedwig, I appreciate the offer, but I'm happy with letting you go first.
And closing our eyes?
Yes, don't be difficult. We just said that we'd do our best to make her comfortable.
I've got no problem with that broadly, but doesn't it feel a bit weird to worry this much about seeing each other in the buff? Naked I came from my mother's womb and all that? Who cares?
That's not for us to judge. It is a little bit. What about Matthew 5:28 or Leviticus 18:9?
Oh my god, again with the Leviticus. We're not actually sisters. I don't think that passage applies. Sister's a term of formal address. It's got nothing to do with being actual siblings of any sort. I know that you know that.
She was right, of course, but it just irritated me even more. I had really been counting on my superior scriptural knowledge to excuse me from being personally embarrassed, but alas. Thinking about it, Hedwig, I know this might be difficult, but how about we all just try doing it the normal way? Getting out, getting dressed, all at once. I think Eustace is right, to some degree. Judas! In what sense? Well, it'll be more difficult in the long run if you don't get used to it. I don't think that that's anything that you need to worry about. I'll just keep on bathing alone, when no one else is here.
Can we make a decision before I get too pruny?
I think we should all get out on the count of 3. You just said that you weren't going to push me as far anymore. Hedwig, there are 3 of us here, and we all like each other. You had a tough day in the village, I know, but you made it back in one piece. Surely this'll be easy compared to what you went through all around those strangers. I don't want to push you, but I do also want to help you. And part of that, I think, might involve pushing you. Just a little bit.
She's right.
If I have no choice, I had nothing left to argue with. My day had been thoroughly confusing, and if mingling naked with my shameless sisters was to be the capstone to the whole affair, well, so be it. I don't think it was Moira's argument that convinced me, however, or rather, it might have, but only because it made me consider the full weight of what I had seen in my vision. I don't know what it meant, but but I certainly felt compelled by a newfound drive to stop stalling in every little aspect of my life. I mean, you do have a choice, but let's just get it over with. So what if I get a glimpse of your,
Socket?
I don't know how to pronounce that. It's obviously not, it might be bell shoes, but I could go like silly with it and go like bella chose. Who knows?
Good lord, that's old-fashioned.
I'm a fancy little lady at heart. I took a deep breath, braced my arms against the edge of the tub. Eustace, however, was already standing up and drying herself off with a towel, and I have been meticulously detailed about almost every aspect of my day outside of my cell, but would you mind if I glossed over the rest of this? I don't particularly feel like describing Eustace and Moira's bodies any further, or my own, for that matter. It's like Belle shows, more or less. Got it. I didn't even know it was French, to be real with you. It could have been anything in the world. I've excised several minor details from my story as it is, after all. Yeah, I mean, Socket made sense to me. That one's just, crude. I've been exhaustive, I'll grant that, but I haven't told you every last meal I've eaten. I've not told you about every trip I've taken to the privies. And I think our conversation in the baths was relevant information, but I think it will suffice to say that I did not enjoy getting dressed in front of my colleagues. But I was very brave about it. You can rest assured of that. Pruning is just as much my responsibility as a chronicler as cataloging, wouldn't you agree? What's important about this ordeal is that I was actually quite courageous and did not make any sort of scene at all. I got dressed alongside everybody else, and we departed the baths without incident. Incident, however, was not too far away. As we passed the rectory on the way to the cloister, Moira gently grabbed my wrist. Hedwig, why don't we go in here? Whatever for? I have something I want to show you. In the rectory?
We should go in.
I was completely bewildered. The pair positioned themselves on either side of me and pushed me toward the steps up to the large wooden door. Oh no, I thought. This is it. They knew I'm nosing around about Catherine's death. They were in cahoots. They're going to have me killed. No. I think I'd like to stay outside, if it's all the same to you. You can grab that. That wasn't the full text message if you want, Nancy.
Stop wriggling.
Let's just go inside. It won't take but a moment. No, thank you. What are you two doing? I'll scream. I was pushed through the large wooden doors. I stumbled backward into the room, bumping my backside into a chair that I held onto to stay upright. Gingerly, I turned around and...
Took you long enough.
You want that one? In the pitch black in the rectory. A crowd was gathered around the rectory Bible, which was itself so laden with food I could scarcely believe it hadn't buckled. Everyone present was smiling widely, and I felt reassured at the very least that I was not about to be murdered in a dark room. Welcome back, Hedwig. How was the village? It was a valuable experience. I'm glad to hear it. But what is all of this? A few days ago, some of the sisters approached me with a reminder that St. Cecilia's feast day was approaching, which, if I am not mistaken, would be the feast day closest to your date of birth, yes? I think so? I had never much needed to track my birthdays whilst I was an anchoress. Christmas was my mental marker for the passage of time. Although once I thought about it, I did remember receiving a more handsomely prepared meal once every autumn for a few years when I was still a child in my cell. Your friends suggested we celebrate. I must admit, St. Cecilia's Day is one that we have often neglected to mark with a proper feast, but we've all agreed it would be appropriate to throw a little bash for you. And for her saintliness, of course.
I don't know what to say.
Start with thanks, and then we can go from there.
Everyone chuckled. I smiled graciously, even though Darcy's remark felt far more cutting than she likely intended.
Oh, how rude of me. Thank you.
Thank you all, very much. Everyone murmured appreciatively in response and moved toward their seats. Moira patted me on the back as she walked to her seat with a twinkle in her eye. Everyone began plating food from the generous piles of poultry, fish, and vegetables in front of them. I thought I recognized some of the carrots I had helped Darcy harvest not long ago. A plump roast duck sat in the center of the table. It all looked and smelled delicious. I apologized for the little ruse. Moira suggested the surprise.
Guilty.
Everyone here contributed a little, however. Isn't that right?
I do believe it was my general idea at first, if we're collecting accolades.
Yes, but I remembered it was a feast day.
Darcy somehow found time to direct the preparation of this meal and bake those wonderful fritters of hers to take to the village. Speaking of, did any of those make it back?
Oh, no. We gave everything away.
A shame. But not a surprise. I'm sure the town couldn't get enough of them. We all helped in the kitchen, too. I was distracted for a moment. Yes, Margaret and Adela and Flora all graciously helped to prepare the meal while you were in the baths. I'll grab that one. It's cool to see I wonder how many more people are going to pile in.
Which, let us not forget, I had drawn beforehand.
That wasn't a spontaneous suggestion on Moira's part.
This is all so elaborate. Nobody has ever done, well, anything like this for me before. And don't you forget it.
Another chuckle went around the whole table. I smiled weakly. Tears were welling up behind my eyes.
Marta and I had the very important duty of taste testing.
That's right.
And guess who set the table?
Well, thank you all very much.
I could feel everyone staring at me expectantly. This is really wonderful. I choked my words out, overcome with too many emotions all at once, mercifully being on the verge of sobbing past a simple gratitude to everyone else present. I was thankful, but, well, I was also confused, and I was anxious, and I was hurt and terrified. As I mentioned, it was too many things, all at once. I didn't deserve any of this. I wasn't anybody's friend. I was a liar and a sneak. I was a dog, set loose in the coop to root out a fox. I gawked across the table at the superior who smiled back at me. I found it incredible that nobody got caught in the puppet strings connecting her and I as they reached between us for food. Do you remember a long time ago, a couple weeks ago, Evil Oatmeal, when I talked about when you're reading a visual novel out loud, you can feel sometimes that it wasn't necessarily intended to be read out loud, and in Misericorde you can catch it specifically because of the way the music loops? That's what I mean. I think that the track length of this song didn't expect for this to be read this dramatically, and it had a very harsh stop and a harsh start again. That's all I meant. It just clicked in my mind, going way back to that conversation when you guys were watching Fata Morgana. The music loops and the conversation of doing it on stream versus just playing a visual novel on your laptop and just having text set to auto advance or whatever. And as it is St. Cecilia's feast day, I will be performing a little composition of mine in the chapel after our meal concludes. If anyone would like to join me for a rehearsal beforehand, I would appreciate the assistance. Margaret? Catherine? I get what you meant. It's just not very noticeable while you're doing the voices and I'm trying to focus on the story. Yeah, it's very noticeable for me. I can feel it. And it gives like a subconscious. I don't really do anything about it, but it does give a subconscious like, pick up the pace, man. There's nowhere we'd rather be, but I do think that we have some urgent matters to attend to once this is all over. Urgent? Well, we were helping prepare all this for most of the day. I have some important tasks I set aside. It was my pleasure, just so you know, Hedwig. I didn't notice until you pointed it out. Yeah, I don't know, I have a musical brain in the way that loops happen. I catch it very, very, very... It's right there. Of course. Well, if it is urgent, of course you may be excused. Since when is anything around here urgent? Ow. Flora glared at Catherine, who maintained an utterly innocent expression. Everyone else, barring any emergencies, you're invited and encouraged to assist. Either way, we must all convene in the chapel later. This was met with a ripple of non-committal murmuring. I could tell the food was excellent, as was to be expected, but as I ate, I felt like I was sitting next to myself. I couldn't taste the juicy duck or the rich gravy. I was having it described to me, secondhand. Everything I could taste and smell and hear and see, well, it felt like it wasn't really there. You feeling well, Sister Hedwig? Oh, my apologies. I have had a long day. What was it like, going down to the village? That must have been quite an adventure for you. It was... Well, I'm afraid I didn't adjust to the experience as well as I could have. It was all a bit stressful. But I think she'll do better next time. Perhaps a picnic or some such? Yes! Ooh, we more or less came up with the same idea, didn't we, Hedwig? That's right. Wonderful news. I do apologize for the stressful assignment, Hedwig. It was the best I could do on such short notice. She took a sip of wine, but kept her eyes on me. Well, I suppose it was all worth it for this. Hear, hear. Although I'm not sure, I wasn't sure I was worth all the trouble. I'm not sure I can repay you all for this. You've all been so very kind, and well,
You don't have to repay us for any of this.
Absolutely not. That's not the point. If you really feel like you're doing something, you gotta do something for us in turn, you could just keep your self-flagellation to a minimum. You could indulge us in some questions about yourself. You've been out of that little cell for weeks now, and still I don't feel I know you as well as I should. That is a fantastic idea. If she's up to it, no escape. I'll do my best. In that case, where are you from? Germany is where I was born, but I don't remember anything about it. I suppose you could say I'm from here. You don't remember anything about where you were born? There's very little I can recall about my life before I took my oaths, I'm afraid. Is there anything at all you can remember? Any particular places? Your parents? No. I don't have any recollections of my mother or my father. I'm very sorry. Oh, crumbs. There's no need to apologize. I just can't imagine what that's like. Don't listen to her, Hedwig. Sounds positively blissful.
Hedwig von Lindbarrow.
I do remember one thing, I think. It's hard to know, in fact, if it's a memory at all. But it is at the very least, it's something I know I could never have picked up in myself. Everyone leaned forward slightly. I remember the smell of the ocean. That's it? For the most part. There are little bits and pieces that I associate with that smell if I try my hardest to recall, but, well, nothing substantial. I was just about to say, the smell of the ocean's one of my strongest memories as well. You and I have more in common than I expected, Sister Hedwig.
Do you speak any other languages?
I don't think so. My grasp of our own language leaves much to be desired. I'm not sure a second one would find purchase in my head. Perhaps you could forget a few phrases like find purchase in order to make some room. Catherine. I remember the saltiness of the sea, and if I try hard enough, I think I could describe the sound of waves. But beyond that, my earliest memories are, well, the Office of the Dead. Ah, how beautiful. Bit morbid for a first memory. I don't find it morbid. It's a very comforting memory, actually. The bishop read it for you, I presume? I would have liked to have witnessed that. Well, it was before my time. 20 years ago, I had just taken my vows at Bournegrove. Yeah. All in all, I remember it being quite a moving ceremony. Oh, that's lovely. I'm glad it's a positive memory for you. After that, it mostly becomes a blur. Not in a bad way, just more like the rest of my life, up until very recently. It's like my life has been one long meditation. Things tend to move faster and slower all at once in a small place, don't they?
No. Time is the same, but it's the same always, I think.
Makes a fair bit of sense to me, actually. Certainly describes how I felt after moving here. Which reminds me, hey, how are my old stomping grounds, Hedwig? Anyone mention me? She shot me an oddly piercing look. No, I'm afraid not. Not a shame. I'm sure the place has fallen apart without me. The grapes they've been sending up to us haven't been tasting as good ever since you left. You know what? I think you're right. Eat. We mustn't let all this food go to waste, and we're due in the chapel for the little recital. Everyone groaned, and the table-wide conversation dissipated as the sisters ate their fill. My stomach was still rather uneasy. I tried to eat as much of the admittedly delicious meal as I could, but I couldn't keep up with any of the others. I watched the others eat as I picked at my own plate, and I couldn't help but notice that Angela was not present. I wasn't surprised that an event even partially in my honor didn't interest her, but I was inclined to agree with Angela's assessment. I wasn't worth this level of pageantry. As I forced the last bits of food down my throat, all I could think of was the disappointment Moira would feel as soon as she entered the dorms. Her unwarranted kindness towards me dissipating instantly as soon as she realized what has happened. I looked across the table at her innocent, smiling face. She would hate me the instant she truly knew me. The piles of food slowly wore down to nothing. Conversation began to start back up again, although quieter, calmer. Everyone, it seemed, was at peace after this decadent meal in my name.
I'll never get tired of your cooking, Darcy.
Thanks, and I'll never get tired of doing it.
Thank goodness for that. Really good work, Darce. Everyone chimed in with murmured agreement, even Flora, who looked uncharacteristically content. It was a lovely meal, Darcy, and thank you, everyone. If you would all excuse me, I must go and prepare for the recital while this gets cleaned up. Would you assist me, Hedwig? Yes, Superior. On her own feast day? What'd she do to deserve this? More than Catherine could know. I don't mind. In truth, I couldn't wait to be free of the crowded rectory, if only for a few minutes. We'll take a break right here. I'm going to get up, use the bathroom. That'll be the end of the first episode. We'll come back for a second episode right after this. If you're watching here on Twitch, it'll be just be a couple of minutes. If you're watching on YouTube, see you in the next episode. Thank you so much, everybody.